You Mirandas. Your sorry suck. Your thank you suck.
I liked the resolution of the thought one.
Let me take the time to get to know you. We can take our time, I'll wait as long as I have to. Let me take the time to get to know you. We can take our time, this love is still brand new.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Raj Nation Innovations Discover Your Inner Awesome podcast. My name is Rajiv Nathan, aka The Raj Nation. I am your show's host. I'm also the founder of Raj Nation Innovation, a hip-hop artist, and a yoga instructor. Above all else, I am a storyteller. And I am joined by my co-host, Victoria Cohen. Victoria is the voice behind the blog almondsandasana.com. She's also a yoga instructor and a community activist focused on helping you make positive lifestyle choices that impact you and the people you serve. This is Discover Your Inner Awesome, the only show where you get to eavesdrop on conversations with entrepreneurs, artists, and musicians about the stories, the journeys, the struggles, but most importantly, the questions that help creative thinkers like you and I better understand who we are, what we're doing, and how we can do it better. It's real talk with real people doing real big things to show you the real side of success. In this episode, we sit down with Jeff Carter. Jeff is the co-founder of West Loop Ventures, a venture capital firm here in Chicago. Our topic conversation with Jeff is answering and discussing the question, how can you be investable? Now, before we dive into that conversation, I'd like to extend an invitation. If you are not a member already, join our tribe by going to www.discoveryourinnerawesome.com. Leave your email address there, and you will get an email in your inbox every single Monday when we release new episodes. You'll also get my stories, tips, and advice throughout the week on how to tell your startup story. All right, let's dive in now to our conversation with Jeff Carter. How can you be investable? Let's listen in.
I'm trying to make myself more investable. I'm an entrepreneur. We're raising money for a fund. So I feel the pain of entrepreneurs. I understand what they're going through. They're trying to raise money. I'm trying to raise money. So I think, though, in the broader sense, if you think about things like the future of work, artificial intelligence, robots, big data, all this stuff that's coming down the pipe, you need to figure out ways to make yourself investable so that you don't get commoditized out of a job like I did. And I think it's a topic that's salient for lots of different occupations other than just entrepreneurship.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that, getting commoditized out of a job?
Yeah, so I was a trader on the floor of the Mercantile Exchange, and I traded my own money. I didn't have customers. You know, if I had a good day, my wife went to Hermes. If I had a bad day, she went to Walmart, you know. So, but I was one of about 15 guys that took control of the CME boardroom and started investing in technology and switched it from a open outcry exchange to a computerized exchange, from a mutually held company to a publicly listed company that did an IPO in 2002. So to give you some sort of scope of what that was like, in 1992, I bought a seat for $580,000. So entrepreneurs often look at me and go, you don't understand what pain is like, all this stuff. I put half down in cash. I had to pay the rest of it off in 5 years at a point over the prime. Prime rate was 9%. I paid it off in 3 years, and then I proceeded to lose about $350,000 in 10 minutes. I had to go get a loan, and I paid that off in 6 weeks. So I understand the ups and downs of entrepreneurship like really, really well. The other thing that people don't realize is that when you are on the board of directors of an exchange at that time, you were an operator of that exchange. So we ran the committees, we made the decisions. We were like, the executives reported to us. We didn't get in and code, and we didn't, but we did write policy, and we did do a lot of the things. And so I was a part of the strategic planning committee of about 20 people that actually charted the course of the Merc. And so it's bigger than just a title, right? So the Merc was very entrepreneurial. The floor was an extremely entrepreneurial place. And I think I reflect that. Now, when I bought my seat in 92, the value of the seat went from 580 to $1 million by 94, 95. The value of the CME as an entity at that time was maybe $1 billion, maybe a little over $1 billion. By 1998, everybody thought we were going out of business, and that same seat sold for $280,000. So then I sort of angel invested in the firm. I bought another seat. We had 3 different seats. I bought another seat for $115,000, paid cash for it, and went on the board of directors. And we IPO'd in November of 2002 at $35 a share, which I think the enterprise value was right around $10 billion. Today it's a $60 billion company. So subsequent to that, I started Hyde Park Angels with some classmates, and I think we kind of kicked off the organized seed stage evolution in Chicago. So, on our backs came Accelerate Labs in 2009. 2012 was kind of 1871. So that was part of making myself investable, and knowing how to invest. And I think whether you're an entrepreneur or the CEO of a corporation, you have got to know how to do that. So when you look at CEOs on TV, they talk their book all the time, but they're talking to potential shareholders. They're making themselves investable. They're selling. Really, making yourself investable is selling at its core, right?
Right. So how much do you think through that journey from 92 and then starting these venture funds, 1871, et cetera,
right?
How much did you, I guess, pull from past experience versus have to learn something new on the job? And then how much do you think your personality plays a role in this?
Yeah, well, I mean, it just depends. I mean, it's a difficult question to answer. How much is my personality? I don't care if I'm out front. I'll take the slings and arrows that come with it. My parents raised me to be a leader. I was always kind of a leader in school. I was an athlete. I went to the Air Force Academy. You learn leadership there. You learn by following. That's what, and I dropped out of there before I'd finished. But, and being tall, you're always kind of looked at as a leader. So, and I was a leader on the floor. And when I led on the floor, you had to marshal a lot of different people with lots of different agendas. I mean, I think people underestimate what the trading floors in Chicago are like. Only people that worked on them could really accurately tell you what it was like. But, when you have to make a decision, you're chairman of some committee, okay? And you have to make a decision between 2 people on who's going to get that spot in that trading pit. And it's $1 million decision, because if this person gets to stand there and the other person doesn't, they can't make as much money. And it's all about making money. It's competitive. It's the most insanely competitive environment in the world. And you had to balance all the different factors and decide who was going to get that spot. Well, that's no different than a lot of CEO decisions that people make. There's people decisions, there's strategic decisions. When we decided, when a bunch of us got together in 1995 and 6 and said, hey, how much is the Merck spending on technology? And they wouldn't show us the books. And we said, wait a minute, we're members here, and we had to fight to get it. And then when we saw what the budget really was, we had to make decisions on how to allocate the capital, and we had limited amounts of capital. And it's not like we could go to the public market at that time and do it, because we were the first exchange in the history of the United States even to go public. So, I mean, that avenue wasn't out there. Like with entrepreneurs now, it's a pretty easy path. You go, okay, I'm going to go raise some money. I'll talk to a bunch of potential investors and get some money. And I know it's a series seed, pre-seed, whatever, however you structure it.
You were making that up.
We were making that up as we went along. We knew we were going to do an IPO, But, private equity firm Blackstone approached us in the meantime as well and tried to buy us with our own money. And we listened to a presentation and we decided not to go that route, So I don't know. It's interesting. What about my personality? I just like to do stuff. I've always been independent. I'm not afraid to do things. I was the only white kid on a basketball team at Triton Junior College for a couple years. Not the only white kid, but just about. When I was in high school, I would drive to Maywood and play basketball, and it just didn't bother me, right? With Hyde Park Angels, everybody told me I was absolutely insane. I would never make money. I would never get off the ground. We'd fail. Who cares, So if you have a fear of failure and that you're always looking at the risk and everything, you're not going to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are looking at when you're looking at people to invest in, what are people or companies, I guess, what are sort of like the couple of big things that stand out to you or that you always look for or maybe that you can look back and say, this is sort of a pattern of the certain traits?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the stock answer is because I invest so early, and I've always invested very early, it's about people first, right? So you invest in people, and virtually everybody will tell you that, right? Steve Kaplan even did a study and showed that early stage investors invest in teams, not ideas, and later stage investors invest in ideas and not necessarily teams because they'll find a new team to come in and operate the idea. What characteristics? That is such a hard thing because people are so random. So if you think about a bell curve of people, right? What's the variance of that bell curve? It's a wide bell curve, right? And so that's why there's a lot of failure, I think, in entrepreneurship because the bell curve is so wide and it's so random. Entrepreneurs that have been successful that I've invested in, what traits do they have? Usually they're solving a problem that they had.
So they're relatable to their own product.
They're solving their own problem. So, one that hops to mind is Catlin Smith from Simple Mills, right? So I was dragged kicking and screaming into that deal by Mark Tebbe because I don't like to do consumer products. But she had a problem with her diet and fixed it. And it turned out to be a scalable solution like Simple Mills, right?
Can you explain?
It's a gluten-free, what it started out to be was just a gluten-free muffin mix. They have muffins, bread, cookies, crackers. You can get them at Whole Foods, Target. She's got nationwide distribution, and she came out of the University of Chicago. She won the New Venture Challenge. She can get them online. When I met her, they had distribution in some grocery stores in the South, some specialty grocery, but they were the number one selling gluten-free muffin mix on Amazon. So there was proof, right? As far as her ability to sell herself and stuff, she was very poised. She didn't stutter a lot. She knew the problem. She knew the solution. She knew the market. She was very capable in the way she answered the questions, and you could just tell that this person could probably do this. Even companies that failed. Another consumer products company where a guy solved a problem. He was a college athlete, played on the University of Colorado football team. They won the national championship. He was in my MBA class, and had a product called Win Products that got the stink out of clothes, workout clothes, right? And I invested in it. It totally failed, but he was solving a problem. He was able to sell himself. The problem was the execution of the company and profit margins and other things. Another guy in my MBA class was a guy named Brian Johnson, who sold Braintree for $800 million to PayPal. And Brian he didn't personally have the problem, but he had been working at Sears Credit and saw the problem and then built the company to solve that particular problem. He was a great salesperson. He was a great manager. Bootstrapped that company, by the way. Never took VC money until he started in '07, won the New Venture Challenge, took his first round of venture capital in 2011. So, I mean, but a great entrepreneur who also was smart enough to get customers early. So if you think about 2007, what companies were starting? Brian got Groupon, fastest growing Chicago internet company in history. He became they became a customer. He got Uber, he got Airbnb, he got, so he was able to go to those companies when a lot of people wouldn't, and he had the wherewithal and the world vision to go after them because he could sign them up. His competitors weren't doing that. So I think that's another thing that great entrepreneurs have is the ability to do the unexpected. So it's really easy to do the expected because everybody can think linearly. But the great outbreaks in innovation and the great entrepreneurs do the unexpected. So, yeah, maybe you should, I do B2B fintech now, so maybe you should call on JP Morgan, right? And try to get a bank and stuff. But maybe you go after some dark part of B2B fintech where there's a lot of nefarious activity, or maybe there's a lot of scumbags and you clean it up. Or, maybe you go to a broker-dealer network. Maybe, there's all different facets. And maybe that's the best place to get proof of concept, because JP Morgan's going to be a long sales cycle, depends on your technology, So I think they do the unexpected. And, I think not to be ethnocentric about universities, but if you look at, Chicago Booth, where I got my MBA, the entire economics department, the Chicago School of Economics, is the unexpected. I mean, it's these things that you think after you look in the rearview mirror, you go, oh, that's totally obvious. If you look at, for instance, Merton Miller's definitions on corporate finance and stock splitting, he said, well, it's like I've got $1 in one pocket and 4 quarters in the other. Well, it's intuitively obvious that that's the same, and a 4-for-1 stock split is the same. But, he had a lot of math that proved that you shouldn't necessarily split stock and that there is no value created and that people don't really buy the shares just because they're cheaper, And there's a lot of stuff like that comes out of Chicago that's counterintuitive. And it's really interesting. And, here you've got a guy, Brian Johnson, who did the unexpected, who got his degree at Chicago. Catlin Mills got her degree at Chicago. I mean, they're churning out great entrepreneurs, and that's great for Chicago, the ecosystem here as well.
Yeah.
So.
No, I was just gonna say, do you find, like, or maybe I don't know how much you've thought about this, but looking back, are many of the people or companies you've invested in, are they first-time entrepreneurs who maybe have a background in corporate or in something else, or are they people who've done this over and over, or is it a mix?
Yeah. So with Hyde Park Angels, there were a fair amount of first-time entrepreneurs. With what we're doing now, we see some. It just depends on how you define entrepreneur. So we closed a deal yesterday. I really can't say the company or anything like that, but the entrepreneur did entrepreneurial things inside companies prior to doing this, right? In some cases, like let's say you're meeting a college student that hacked something together in a dorm room, a bunch of people with Red Bull, maybe it's their first time building a company, but maybe they were the kid that went out and had a paper route, or they had a lemonade stand, or, they sold subscriptions, or, there was something
Usually
in there.
They've done something
You
else.
can ask, what did you do in your life? Did you mow lawns and set up a business doing that? What did you do in your life that was entrepreneurial?
Yeah, and I like where you're going with this because, so through my business where I'm working with these startups,
Right.
One of the things I often come across with these entrepreneurs is how easily they'll brush over past experience, thinking it's not relevant, or because
Right.
it's not directly related to the business they're doing now, it's not important and not worth sharing, and people won't take me seriously.
Yeah.
When the reality is, especially if this is your first like real company, right, where you're trying to raise money,
Right.
you have to show some type of, not just this is what I do for a job, but this is the way I'm wired.
Yeah.
Right. Whether it is the lemonade stand, like
Right.
not that I personally am trying to raise money, but like my first business, quote unquote, was taking someone's Pokemon cards and selling them on his behalf to the other students at school
There you go.
and taking a commission out of that.
Right. But that's entrepreneurship.
Yeah, and I think it's a matter of, and something I work with them very closely on is being able to communicate how what you're doing now with this company is really just an extension of the way you think.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big selling point in terms of being investable.
Yep.
Simon Sinek has the whole start with why concept, relating it to your personal why, though, not just what's the why of
Right.
the company,
Right.
but why do I believe this, and what is my ultimate vision? And the more articulate and clear you can be about that, the more, and as Simon Sinek explains in his TED Talk and in his book, it's a biological emotion you can tap into, not a psychological,
Yeah.
but it's a biological thing you tap into,
Right.
because you're speaking to someone's limbic system at that point, the part of the brain that processes emotion.
Right.
And you can have a bunch of facts and figures on your whiteboard, in your pitch deck, on your executive summary and everything.
Yeah.
But if that's all you are as a person, is a pitch deck, is a white paper,
Right.
what are you buying into? You're buying into an idea that maybe has some traction. As an investor,
Right.
you're basically going to say, okay, so what am I going to buy into? An idea that has some traction, and I don't know anything about this person. I don't know if I can trust them. I don't know if they have any type of resilience.
Yeah. Well, resilience is a different topic, but if you can't be an entrepreneur without being resilient.
You want to talk more about that?
You just can't, because you're going to get knocked down, and you have to get up, and you have to always just get up. It's kind of like ants when you dig when I was a little kid, I used to like to mess with antholes. You know,
Sounds like a nice.
yeah, it was nice. I had nothing to do, and you'd watch him redig that hole over and over again, and that's what the entrepreneur has to do. I mean,
Oh, I like that.
they
You
just
wanted to keep messing with
yeah,
them.
well, it's funny to watch them, but and if you just have to, I mean, if you look at wild animals, like you go to Africa, right, or you go on YouTube and you watch like lions attacking hippos or whatever, and the fight for life to like live
Survival of
and
the
survive
fittest. Yeah.
is so strong that they will do anything to do it, right? And entrepreneurs have to be that way, where it's the end, but you're still fighting.
Yeah.
There's a time when it's the end, and you got to say, you know what, this is not going to go my way, and you try to exit as gracefully as you can. But you got to, if you're not willing to do that, if you're not willing to put it all on the line and do that, and then be resilient, because you're going to get told no by every customer, you're going to get told no. I need an engineer. You're going to try to go hire 20 engineers, and they're all going to say, screw you, I can go make $500,000 working for Google. You got to be used to that. So if you can't deal with rejection, you can't be in an entrepreneurial role.
Right.
Just can't do it. And you're not going to be CEO of a corporation either.
Yeah. Well, and I know even like, some of the founders I'll talk to now, I've gotten to a point where I can start to, with my business, I've gotten to a point where I can start to say, I do want to work with you versus I don't,
Yeah.
I think you'd make sense to work
Right,
with versus
right.
no, like it'd be a waste of your money, it'd be a waste of my time kind of thing.
Sure.
And, I'll run into a handful of instances where, like just recently actually, I was talking to a founder and they were just saying how much a solo founder, didn't have a team yet, wanted to raise money within the next 30 days. And that also is a sign to me is like, okay, you don't understand.
You don't
how this
understand.
operates
Yeah,
at
this
all.
is not good.
People
Yeah.
don't just, you don't just walk on the street and say, money,
Yeah.
please,
Yeah,
money. Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
I always tell them like 3 to 6 months if you're ready, and potentially longer.
Yeah.
But not only was it a situation of that, it was also what they told me was like, they absolutely hate having to like campaign for their company and don't like being the person who's out front and center, which you've said, like, you don't have to be that person, but if you don't have anyone else,
Yeah.
you do have to be that person.
You got to be that person.
And so I told him, I was like, you either have to find a co-founder for this who's going to be
Yeah.
that front-facing person, or you're not going to get any, or just don't expect money from anyone.
Sometimes it's framing too. I hate raising money. It's such it's a hard thing to do. But if you frame it in the way, and this is how sales, I'm stealing from Craig Wortman, who's a professor at Northwestern now. You're actually doing them a service because you're offering them a good or service that they can't otherwise get, and you're doing them a favor. If you look at it that way, it comes different. But if you're not willing to campaign for yourself, nobody else is going to campaign for you. Yeah. So, and it shows that you believe in what you're doing. I don't think, I think that people say, follow your passion. They're full of shit. I don't think that's right at all. If I was following my passion, this is not what I would be doing. I'm passionate about it. I like it. But, I've got other things I'm passionate about. I like working in the woods too, and I like gardening and I like, cooking and a lot of other things, but I can't make a business out of it, or earn a living off it. And I can't get any return out of it. So I think what you wind up doing is what Mark Cuban says is follow your effort. So where are you putting your effort, right? And if you follow your effort, it will eventually become your passion. But you have to, because this is so hard. Entrepreneurship is so hard, and the probability of failure is so high that if you're not willing to put in the effort, it's not worth doing. Yeah. And so just having passion isn't going to sustain you. So like when I became a trader, when I was a little kid, I used to wake up in the morning and watch Ori and Samuelson's Farm Report before Ray Rayner. I got up at 6:30 every day, or 6 o'clock and watch it. And It was so cool to me. Like these pictures of these guys. And then this guy took me on the floor and it was like the first time, and I was like, wow, this is cool. Well, it turns out in school, I really liked studying about markets, and I took my college loan, and instead of paying for college, I invested it and I doubled my money. And, so that was kind of my effort, right? And that became my passion. And so, and I always liked startups. I always liked listening to business plans and stuff. And that was, so I followed my effort, right? And became passionate about it. So I think entrepreneurs are no different. You follow your effort. And if it's just a job, you're going to burn out.
I think so. I like that you said like follow your passion is bullshit. I used to be one of the champions of follow your passion. I kind of hate that I was that.
Yeah, it's okay.
I will say indirectly, I basically make money off of everything I am passionate about at this point, which is nice.
But it's your effort.
It's the effort, and I think I mentioned this on a previous episode at some point, but most people don't know, and I only found this out very recently. The Latin root of the word passion is passi, which means to undertake or to suffer. So what I tell people now is, unless you're willing to suffer for it, it's not a passion. It's just if you only do it when you like it, it's just something you like. It's a hobby. That's fine.
Right.
It's totally cool, right?
That's right.
But you can't really say you're passionate about it if you're not willing to do it even on your worst day. Mm-hmm. Even if when you look at this computer screen and you hate yourself and you hate the thing, you're not still willing to plug away anyways and redig the anthill, as you said. And that's, I think, that's sort of that dividing line where it's like, you can say follow your passion and you can say it's my passion and I'm doing it because it's my passion. If passion is used in the truest sense of the word, that it's my struggle, it's my suffering. Yeah. Right? Like the Passion of the Christ, the title, right? It wasn't the really good, great life of Christ. No. It was the suffering of the Christ.
Yeah, it's true. And I think to tie it back to investability, you sense that as an investor, and you see that, right? Like people get energetic when they talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're not passive. They don't use a passive voice. You know, like if I watch, I'm trying to think of somebody like if I watch Troy Hennicoff talk about what he does.
Techstars math. Well, he's not with them anymore.
Yeah, Techstars math, whatever. He's you sense vitality in how he's talking about it.
Let's pause 60 seconds for this public service announcement for you startup founders out there listening. The Discover Your Inner Awesome podcast is brought to you by Raj Nation Innovation. If you are not familiar yet with Raj Nation Innovation, let me tell you real quick. I talk to founders pretty much every day who flat out tell me, Raj, we suck at telling our story. Well, my job is to remove the suck. With Raj Nation Innovation, I blend a unique background in both branding and songwriting because, as I'm sure you know if you've been listening to this show, I am also a hip-hop artist. And so I look at business communication through the lens of entertainment and performance. And with that approach, I partner with growth-focused startups to help them develop their pitch, their story, and their message so they can go raise investor capital and acquire their early customers. Companies like FanFood, Keo, Jiffy Rides, Muses, and more have all gone through my signature brand communication playbook and come out on the other side winning pitch competitions, raising seed funding, and being masters of telling their story. Holler at me at www.rajnationinnovation.com. That's rajnationinnovation.com. Back now to the show.
In the recent, it's funny, like, not to get political, but if you lined up the 16 Republican candidates, okay, in the debates, there were people that were talking about stuff, and it was just a job.
Mm.
It was matter of fact. Like when I heard Lindsey Graham talk, I was like, he's not selling the why.
Oh yeah, Donald sounded very passionate.
Donald Trump sold the why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was passionate. I mean, he followed his effort, and he was passionate about it. And if I talk to people, like, you might not like that Trump's president, or you might like it, whatever.
But he did that.
But if I said, what was Hillary's campaign slogan?
Yeah.
Oh, it's like you've read my article on this.
Nobody can say it,
I literally wrote an article on this.
right? And everybody can say Trump's.
Mm-hmm.
If I go back to 2012 or 2008 and I say, what was Obama's, especially 2008, what was Obama's campaign slogan and what was McCain's?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody can name McCain's.
You are literally like,
Right?
done so many
we
talks.
talked
and
It's
articles.
so
Oh my
it's so
God.
true, right? And so if I go back even to Reagan in 1980
Yeah.
or 84, he sold the why and he sold the passion, and people and passion. If you do that, you can lead because people will follow you.
Yeah.
And it goes even to great generals, right? If you look at the great admirals and generals in American history, or in history in general, but I'm only familiar with the ones in America, you know, you start to tick them off, right? You know, there's Patton, and there's Bull Halsey, and there's, you know, John Paul Jones, and, you know, Washington, and, you know, you can go Grant,
Sure.
Sherman through Georgia. You can go on and on about the different ones, right? I mean, if you watch, you know, my daughter was born in 91, so we spent a lot of time just sitting in front of the TV watching Norman Schwarzkopf give his daily briefing, and you wanted to follow that guy, you know? And great CEOs are like that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Great CEOs are, you just look at them and you're like, I'll go to bat for that guy. I will die for that guy. I will do anything for that guy. Steve Jobs, or Jobs, I don't know how you say his name, but he's kind of that way.
Wait, the Apple guy?
Yeah,
Jobs.
Jobs.
Why would it be Jobs?
Shit, I don't know how to say his name, but
Jobs.
yeah, Jobs, Jobs, I don't know. But Tim Cook is not that guy.
Yeah.
Right. You know what's interesting too, that if you've noticed, so under Jobs, the Apple mission statement was essentially like, we enhance the human experience.
Yeah.
We bring color, not we
Right.
bring color, but those kinds of things. Like, it was built around the idea of enhancing the human experience, and that was like the opening line.
Yeah.
Some variation of that. Since Tim Cook took over, their mission statement just became an explanation of what they sell. It was like literally the
Right.
first line is, Apple is the creator of the iLife suite, the MacBook, the Apple iPad, and and I'm like, that's not, you're literally just showing me like what's on the aisle.
I'll take a Google Pixel, please.
Yeah.
I mean, And if I think about like in my own life, if I think about like I had some shitty basketball and football I had great ones. And like, you know, the great ones would give you something to hang on to. Like, you know, I can, I will, I must. That's resiliency. You're not going to fail. You're not going to let yourself fail. Gene Smithson, I'd go to this basketball camp at Illinois State, and Gene Smithson was an assistant coach and then the head coach at Illinois State. And he came up with this thing called MTXE, mental toughness, extra effort. And he would put it on all their uniforms. And it was like, you are gonna do this. You're not gonna get stopped, right? And that's what great entrepreneurs are about. And that's what makes them investable.
Yeah.
We're in the offices of Halo Investing. And when I talk to Bijou about his company, you can just sense it, you know, and they will find a way. You got to find a way.
Yeah.
You have to find a way. And, you know, different entrepreneurs do it for different reasons. Some of them do it because they truly just have to solve this problem and they're driven. Some of them do it out of responsibility to their investors. I've raised all this money. God, I can't lose it. Some of them do it because I've hired all these people. They're depending on me and I have to do it because they're depending on me. And there's all different reasons why you do what you do. But, you know, at the end of the day, you just can't let yourself fail.
I think so, Victoria. I want to give you a chance to have some insight here. So, in general, the concept of being investable is basically selling the idea of yourself or the thing you're doing at the end of the day. Persuasion, ultimately. So, in the yoga community, what you're building right now is basically a brand around your philosophies of life, your style of teaching, and aligning people under that who want to believe in those same things or follow those same thought patterns. So when you think about how you approach a class or even with your blog, how do you kind of navigate or approach the basically concept of like, I need to get these students to buy into what I'm going to teach them and not treat it, not dismiss it, not treat it as this is crap. I need to be going to a different teacher. She doesn't know what she's talking about.
So this has recently shifted a little bit. We just had this conversation about, at first, I think there is a tendency to just give people in this particular realm that we're talking about in yoga, give people that immediate thing that they want. So they want fast movement, they want their workout, they want this, they want that. But I think from a long-term perspective of building a following of people who come back and come back and come back to you as the teacher, as their, you know, as the person they're sort of following, is showing them through a longer term process that they're improving in some way, that they're gaining something from it. So it's not just that they're coming in, they're sweating and they're getting a workout and they leave, but that, you know, for a month they've been working on doing crow pose and now they can do crow pose. Or for the last month they've been adding a minute on every day of meditating and now they can actually sit in stillness and meditate for 15 minutes. So I think it's proving out that the process you're taking people through actually gets them some end result that's not just the quick fix. And that's more the approach that I've wanted to do that for a while. I just hadn't like stepped back and actually taken the time to really think through it. And I was just recently at a training that we talked a lot about this. And so that's something that I'm excited about doing going forward. And not just in yoga, but then in my blog and other things as well, having a larger, broader, long-term theme to really show people the bigger impact or the bigger change that they're able to get out of whatever it is that I'm trying to teach them. I think ultimately I've been thinking about this in this conversation about what's your effort is I like or I think I'm good at teaching people how to do things better or like teaching them how to do processes more efficiently or
so they know how to do it.
So they know how to do it and then eventually then they can do it on their own, hopefully. But yes, so I think that's something I've always liked doing is taking something that works, looking at it and thinking about how you can do it better or, you know, more efficient. It's an engineer thing, right? Yeah. More efficiently, whether that's cooking, meal prep. I mean, you know, it's silly, meal prep, but it's true. If you don't set yourself up to be successful during the week at the beginning, and here's how you can do it. And, you know, it's the same thing with yoga. If you just go in and you flail your body around, probably going to hurt yourself, and ultimately you're not going to like yoga, and you're not going to grow in any sort of way. But if you have a process and you do it, you commit to it. So, yeah.
Jeff, you mentioned you practice Iyengar yoga.
Iyengar, yeah.
What keeps you coming, and how long have you been practicing, and what keeps you coming back?
How long have I practiced? Over 3 years.
Okay.
Same instructors. What keeps me coming back? My body feels better. Yoga is such a weird thing and different disciplines are different, but with Iyengar, it's about alignment, not only your physical, but your spiritual and mental inside alignment. It's actually more about the inside than it is the outside. The outside is manifesting itself, right? So the beginning of it was just putting yourself in a position, Can I do Uttanasana, And now, I could never do headstand until this year.
Congrats.
Now I can do a headstand. Headstand. Yeah. Headstand. And that's the first time in my life I've ever done a headstand. I was an athlete growing up. I was pretty good. I was probably top 50 basketball players in the state of Illinois. I was super flexible, but I'm 55 years old now, so it's different. And I do it. My wife likes doing it, so it's something we can do together. It turns out I wind up in a class with people that I like, so there's some community around the class. And I like the instructor because it challenges me mentally. It's more about, it's the physical now, but it's also the mental. And so that's interesting. I've always been kind of a psychological mental guy. Trading was physical and it was, stressful if you let it be stressful, but it was more about your mental preparation and your psychology than anything else. And entrepreneurship's about that too. You have to get excited, but you have to keep an even keel. What happens when things don't work out? What happens when you just raised money at $100 million, things didn't work out, and now people want to raise money at $50 million? That's a blow.
Yeah.
So it sounds like for you, yoga, kind of like what I was saying, it's that you've seen some sort of progression, whether it's physical, like you can now stand on your head, but from the mental standpoint, now, it sounds like you came at it from, just sort of thinking, oh, maybe I'll be able to fold forward or whatever, and now it's become this.
Right.
Sort of
I would have been a significantly better athlete and trader had I done yoga. But when I was that age, I would have made fun of you.
Yeah. And you would have wanted it to be like your workout and go through it or whatever.
Well, I don't know, but I would have made total fun of you. I would have derided you. I would have, for as long as we were around each other, to the point we're being mean probably. But, and I tried different styles. My daughter took me to this hot yoga. I didn't like that. I went to vinyasa. I didn't like that. I tried this other and didn't like that, and I finally found Iyengar on the recommendation of somebody. I was like, nah, and I went and I kept going, and turns out I like it. So it suits my personality. Others maybe not, So.
But and then to kind of bring it back to the entrepreneur perspective, it really is that same thing in terms of being investable in a money sense. Are you able to show progress / traction?
Yeah.
Can you show people a destination they're trying to? Technically there's no destination in yoga, but you can have these mini destinations.
But you can
right?
say, I'm
here are
going
these
to be
mile
able
markers we're working
right,
towards.
to get to a headstand, to get to a
Mm-hmm.
meditation, whatever.
And then the ultimate vision of the company is the theme you're trying to build and put out into the world at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think most CEOs would be better if they did yoga, believe it or not.
Totally.
Just because there is no such thing as work-life balance when you're an entrepreneur. That's a total bullshit thing. I know it's like a hot thing, and like I got to shut it off, and I'm gonna go but you never really shut it off. And when I was trading, I never shut it off. Even when the markets weren't open 24 hours, I was thinking about it.
Yeah, you think about it, because you enjoy it.
Yeah, and now I never shut it off. always the companies that I'm invested in, I'm always thinking about them. Even I invested in 23 companies before I did West Loop Ventures with Kenny. I always think about those 23 companies. They're always around. So if I have a random interaction with somebody, I can say, hey,
Yeah.
And so it's just the way you're wired. I think humans are wired that way. So yoga helps you with that, I think. But hey, I'm just one person.
So let's talk for a few minutes specifically about West Loop Ventures. I think you kind of espouse the philosophies you have so far. But, so at the surface level, West Loop Ventures is a venture capital firm. It's your newest baby, so to speak. Can you let our listeners
It'll be my
know?
last baby. Because at my age,
Yeah.
my partner's young. It won't be his last baby. It'll be my last baby.
So with that, can you just let our listeners know why this is about more than just being another VC firm?
Yeah, so I did a lot of investing in lots of different stuff. Some are really great companies, some failed, some, and Hyde Park Angels was great. I had a difference of opinion with some of the people in Hyde Park Angels over the way the organization should go, so I left. I tolerated it for a couple years, and then I got out. With West Loop Ventures, what happened was I met Kenny through a person that put us together who wanted to invest in a fund. Frankly, he backed out. And the reason he backed out was I was a Republican, and he's a Democrat. And he goes, I will never invest in a Republican. And I said, okay, if you want to be discriminatory, that's fine. It's your capital. You can do whatever you want, And I find in the venture space, by the way, I think there is a lot of discrimination against Republicans and conservatives in general. And we saw it at Google, and we see it, in a lot of different places. Not real tolerant, despite what they think. They think they're libertarians, but they're not. But that's neither here nor there. So when Kenny and I got together, we were traders. Kenny was an electronic trader. He was very entrepreneurial his whole life. Wound up working for Gecko at age 18, which was one of the first HFT firms in the world. And in one of Michael Lewis's books, I can't remember which one, is The Pariah. They're the reason the markets are screwed up. It's not exactly true. I mean, I was one of the guys at CME that ushered in the HFT world, right? So they wouldn't be there without what we did at CME. So I think Michael Lewis is way too simplistic on that. But Kenny at age 18 started there. He started his own real estate fund when he went to college and bought houses. So he's really entrepreneurial and was a trader. And I was entrepreneurial and a trader. And we said, okay, we're stupid traders. Where do we have an edge? Because traders always want to have the edge. Where we have an edge that we can exploit over everybody else in the world is, number one, we understand business-to-business fintech better than any fund out there in the United States. There isn't a fund that understands it better than us. And we're only a two-person shop, and we're just getting going. But if you look at funds in Silicon Valley, they definitely don't get it. And the reason I know that is you talk to entrepreneurs that have tried to raise money that are in B2B fintech, they will come back and tell you that those funds don't get it. That the partners on those funds that understand fintech, they understand payments or wealth management or sort of B2C plays, but they really don't get the guts and glue of what makes a bank, an insurance company, a capital market operate. And that's where the big money is. So 67% of a bank's cost of goods sold is in the back office. Nothing's been done there to innovate it. Nothing. So we talk to banks all the time. They're innovation officers. If you look at banks, insurance companies, whatever, virtually all of them have an innovation officer, some sort of incubator, or maybe a venture fund. They're trying to pivot the battleship, or more likely an aircraft carrier, to to get innovation in-house because they see it coming. When we were at CME, CME was the most innovative exchange in the world. And, you'd try to do stuff. Now, has CME innovated really much since the IPO? Not at all. There's not one new contract that they've listed that's been successful. They're going to list Bitcoin futures here pretty quick, but they haven't innovated. They're a big corporate giant. What does CME do? They buy innovation. What does JP Morgan do? They buy innovation. All of them buy innovation. So where is that innovation built? So if we look historically where the engineers reside that builds B2B fintech innovation, it's in Chicago, Toronto, New York, kind of Atlanta, St. Louis maybe Austin, Texas. I didn't say San Francisco. That's because they're not there. So in 1998, you had this big internet bubble, right? Bunch of engineers out there. The bubble burst in 2001. Engineers they call it the nuclear winter, right? Couldn't get a fucking job. You can't get funding, And a lot of those engineers wound up in banking because banks could hire. They came to Chicago. They came to New York, right? The futures industry started going electronic in 97. High frequency trading started to really come in around 98, 99. That's when they were hiring the engineers. So if you had any fintech knowledge at all, you came to Chicago. So if you went to jump trading, DRW, GetGo, whatever, everybody graduated from the best engineers in schools in the country. Stanford, Illinois, MIT, Cal, we could name them, right? And then in 2008, when the banks blew up, well, if you were in fintech and you wanted a job, you came to Chicago because the HFT firms hired you. And they're still here. So what's happening in the HFT industry is it's contracting. And it's gotten a lot more competitive because there's less volatility. If you look at the VIX in the market, there's less volatility. The market's gotten a lot more efficient. So it's tougher to make money. And so these shops are consolidating. Well, they don't need as many engineers. And they're also, maybe been in the industry 14, 15 years, know where a lot of the problems lie. And they'll poke their head up and go, hey, I could build a company. And they're building companies. Well, they don't want to go to the Valley. They got kids, they're here. It's expensive. They like Chicago. They like New York. They like, they want to stay in place. And so we have a huge edge because we see deals that nobody else sees. And by the way, I sent a deal out just the other day, sent a Chicago-based deal. I'm not going to talk about which one, to some of my friends who invest in Silicon Valley. And they came back and they're like, this I don't understand. It's above my pay grade.
It involves revenue? What?
No, it's not revenue. It's even just the concept.
Yeah.
And so we have a gigantic edge. Well, from Kenny and I's perspective, it's like, okay, so we know all the people. We know all the players. I have a suit network. He has an engineer network. We're in Chicago, which is ground zero for this stuff. We have connections in New York and Toronto and stuff. You look at the biggest innovation. What's the biggest innovation in the internet today? It's cryptocurrency. It's blockchain. We totally get that, right? And then when we think about the back office, we get that. And we get two-sided markets and capital markets. And the homes to those are here, right? So the largest exchange in the world is in Chicago. One of the second largest exchanges in the world is in Chicago, CBOE. One of the largest clearinghouses in the world, the OCC, is in Chicago. Then you go to New York, and it's New York, So we have a gigantic edge. And so now we're just trying to exploit the edge. Now there's secondary and tertiary things that we kind of have missions about. And one is, hey, Kenny grew up here, I grew up here, we love the city. The city's going to crap because it's been poorly managed. And we can create something here that's going to be great, And we're not going to save the city, but we can create a lot of opportunities for a lot of people and create some really big companies out of it. The third thing is we just believe in markets and fintech and stuff. And And we want to kind of teach people about that. You know, selfishly, I think that capital markets are misunderstood by everybody. People think that a lot of things in America are free market, and they're not. You know, the healthcare market is anything but a free market. It's got, you know, price floors, ceilings, mandates. You know, it's the most fucked up market I've ever seen. They look at the airlines and the guy getting dragged off the plane, and they go, oh, it's because of deregulation and free markets, and that's not even close to true, you know? So people don't even understand what a market is anymore. And so part of it is teaching people what a market really is.
Yeah. So not only,
So
really,
that's, I guess, why we do what we do.
yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I think sort of the summary statement of that would be, for West Loop Ventures, it's not only that you're putting in capital in terms of dollars, but you are providing the authoritative intellectual capital in this specific domain.
Yeah, I mean, and we can help out. Like, you know, do you need to meet this guy or this woman or this person? Yeah, okay, well, we'll make that happen. You know, and we work our network and make it happen. And so it's different. Like, there's people that say they're active investors, and what they really mean by that is they have a lot of board positions and they're a judge and a jury, and, you know, rather than being active. And we will not invest in a firm unless we can add value at an early stage. And that's one question we always ask ourselves is, hey, this may be a great business, but can we add any value? And if we can't add any value, then we're commodity money. Well, we know what commodity money is. Commodity money is retail, and that's what we used to trade against, and they always lost money.
Where can our listeners learn more about West Loop Ventures, potentially get in touch with you?
Westloopventures.com is our website. You can contact us there. I blog every single day at pointsandfigures.com. I'm on andfigures.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter at pointsandfigures, but it's not an and, it's just an N. So I'm the oldest man in social media, people tell me.
So just search oldest man.
Yeah. So no, I'm not anymore.
Most hair on social media.
Yeah, how about it? But it's, you know, I mean, and like, I don't pay for followers. It's just I put out whatever I feel. It's all about me and what I feel that day and whatever. And I don't, you know, I mean, one of the things from my life going to the Air Force Academy for the short time I did, and then being on the trading floor is, you know, at Air Force it was, you know, we will not lie, cheat, steal, nor tolerate anyone among us who would. That's the honor code, you know. On the floor it was your word is your bond. So if you didn't follow through and if you didn't do what you were going to say, you were out.
Yeah.
And we treat entrepreneurs that way, and I treat sort of friends and sort of my blog and everything else that way. I am who I am, you know. I'm not changing that, and if it's blunt, sorry. And we'll tell entrepreneurs, hey, we're being blunt, we're sorry. But they should look at that criticism as, if it's criticism, as favorable, because you don't get that from venture capitalists. Most venture capitalists are full of shit. And they'll say, oh, and the entrepreneur will walk away and say, that was a great meeting. Oh, man, was that great? Well, did you get a check? No. Do you have a follow-up meeting? Well, no.
It's just like sales. It's literally how sales works.
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah. And so like, and I'll hear from an entrepreneur, oh, I had a great meeting with them. Okay, well, are you going to follow up? Did you get an order? Did you get, well, we're going to keep talking. Well, great. You know?
Keep talking.
and my advice to entrepreneurs, contrary to a lot of VCs, is don't if you can avoid the VC market, avoid it. It's the most expensive capital on the street because you have to give up equity. And that's you. That's a piece of you. And so every time you sell a piece of your company, you're selling a piece of you to somebody else and you're giving them control. So if you can bootstrap, best. If you can grow from cash flow, great. If you can get a bank loan and a line of credit, that's good too, as long as you can pay it. If you have to go to venture capital, go to venture capital. But it should be a last resort, not the first resort.
So to wrap up then, let's give our answer to today's question going one by one. We'll start with Victoria. Jeff, we'll close with you. So our topic today is how can you be investable? Victoria?
The two things that I liked that we discussed were, one, being very clearly passionate about it, and not not
Like
letting
real
that,
passion?
Yeah, like real passion. Not letting that go unknown or trying to be too modest about it or whatever. And then the second thing is I liked what you said about an idea, solving your own problem almost. And obviously there are many situations where you're not necessarily solving your very own problem, but I think that's an interesting thing to think about when you're going to potentially pitch. So I like that.
Yep. My answer for how can you be investable? I mean, I literally have a business built around helping people become investable via the story they tell. So, I mean, I'll have to give an answer bias, but can you communicate the right story to your potential stakeholders? Because if they don't know what they're buying into, there's no chance in hell they are going to buy into you. So communicate clearly.
Yeah, that's true.
Jeff, how can you be investable?
You have to show that you can execute. You have to build trust in a relationship. You have to follow through. And I think you have to show, I mean, you got to show that you're excited about what you're doing. And it can't be fake. It's got to be real.
Jeff Carter, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's good to get to know you.
That wrapped up our conversation with Jeff Carter. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us, for sharing your experience, your journey, your story. Did you, the listener, enjoy this episode? If so, the best compliment you can give us is a rating and review on iTunes. Ratings and reviews help more people find the show, therefore more people get to discover their inner awesomes. While you're leaving that review, go ahead and subscribe to the show on whatever platform it is you listen, whether it is iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or the various other podcasting platforms in which you can find the show. For full show notes, references, and resources, as well as Jeff's contact information and Westland Ventures information, grab it all at discoveryourinnerawesome.com. That'll tie a bow on this one. Thank you again to Jeff Carter for joining us. For Victoria Cohen, I am Raj Nation. You have been listening to the Discover Your Inner Awesome podcast. We will see you next time. But in the meantime, take care and be awesome today.
My baby sweet, I mean, she's